Well, hello. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us with our little podcast today. This is Germán Mendez. Germán Mendez is a veterinarian that works in Cozumel, Mexico. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here.
We're very, very happy to have you. So if we could just start off by you just telling anyone that's watching this a little bit about yourself and what you do in Cozumel.
Basically, yes, I was a veterinarian and I've been working now more in the marine environment. And what we are doing in Cozumel is that Cozumel, we had pristine coral reefs. And we know that coral reefs are very scarce in the world. We only have 0.5% of coral reef in the bottom of all the oceans of the planet. So they are in very hard situation because most of the places that they have corals is where people live, where people develop, where people do houses, where people use and have mass tourism. So it's becoming a problem, and those coral reefs have been affected. And in the last 30 years, we have had different impacts that they have affected the corals worldwide. And locally in Cozumel, we have had a problem with our corals because of the damage that they had received. They can be natural damage to the corals, like a storm, but the problem is the damage that is done by development and by, for example, all what it is, the sewage and all the nutrients that they go into the water, that they affect how the coral can be able to grow. Also, we have noticed that most of the people that they visit Cozumel, besides the ones that they come in the cruise ships, are people that they come here to scuba dive. And we realize that when we are learning how to scuba dive, that we were never taught how we should be able to be in the coral reef. We don't even know what a coral reef is. They teach us how to dive, and then from there we keep on going in our career as divers. But when we get to the reef, we don't know what a coral is. So what we do is that we have done a coral farm in Cozumel, where we have several platforms, and these platforms are taken care of by people that they take the course of how to, that they learn how to do the coral identification, and also how they can help us to maintain those corals alive and well, and make that these corals can be planted somewhere else in places where we can restore a reef. So now the same divers that they have that tool that is so necessary, that it is the diving, can help us by now having the knowledge of what corals are, how you handle them, where is this where you have to plant them, how do you have to take out the algae that can hurt them. Then they can help us to protect the reef. And now they have that sense of ownership of the reef. Mm-hmm. So that helps for them to be more conscious divers. And if that we can be putting it, we have, in the days before the pandemic, we had 3,000 divers a day inside of the marine park. And this is not only a case of Cozumel, and that's only what we're talking about divers. We're not talking about snorkelers that they come in the cruise ships or anything else. So the load to the parks is immense. And besides that, they have beach clubs to provide services with them. And if they are not connected to the sewage, then there are discharges of nutrients into the water. So all that has made a deterioration of the reef. And to that, we put together that the people don't know what the corals really are, then we add a lot of problems to the coral. So that's what we do. We are providing this, that we can make the divers to become part of the solution, to help us to be restoring the reefs by the knowledge and by helping us to know what they have to do to plant the coral. Basically, that's what we're doing.
That is absolutely amazing. That is awesome. You know, I'm new to diving myself, and it would be a dream to be able to do something like that. And on top of that, I feel like as a new diver and as a diver in general, you definitely feel more connected and more united with the ocean when you know what you're seeing and when you know how to be a part of the underwater world in a safe way. So that's absolutely amazing.
And not only that, they also help us because when they go and they do the regular dive, they can tell us now that they know what the species that they can recognize the corals. For example, in 2018, we had a very bad disease that it was called the white syndrome disease that affects corals, and it was terrible in all the Mesoamerican barrier reef. And in Cozumel, we lost almost 50% of all the corals in just 1 year because of this
Wow.
disease. But now, by knowing the people, not only knowing how to identify the species, but also identifying the diseases, they can tell us, they can find the species that they were more affected by this disease, if they are coming back or not, or if they have found one in a place where we can be able to try to do, wait for the spawning so that we can be able to reproduce them. So they can be
So
hope.
what is, because I don't even know, what is white syndrome disease? Is it the form of, is it bleaching, or is it different than coral bleaching?
No, this disease is started in Florida in 2014.
Okay.
By 2018, start arriving into the area of the Mesoamerican barrier reef. And in October of 2018, we start noticing that the corals, they were bleaching. The difference between the bleaching and the disease is that the
Hmm.
disease is caused or by virus or by a bacteria. The
Okay.
etiology hasn't been determined specifically yet. It's
Okay.
been treated, but it's only symptomatologically. Hopefully, we are going to be making more advance in that so that there
Okay.
can be more better results. But
Okay.
that's what the white syndrome disease is.
Okay.
The bleaching of the coral, when the corals get white, is because the corals are animals that they have an association with an algae that lives in their tissue. That algae, what it does is that it makes a symbiosis with the coral by living in their epidermis, and
Hmm.
they capture the sunlight, and through the photosynthesis, they provide with the carbohydrates that the coral can be able to eat.
Hmm.
Because what coral reefs grow is because there is very little nutrients, there is very little food. That's why the water is more clear in the areas where the coral reefs grow,
Oh,
because
okay.
there is no plankton. So the
Okay.
only way that they can eat is by having this symbiosis with the algae.
Hmm.
And although that they are animals and they eat like animals during the night,
Hmm.
they have little tentacles and they have stinging cells that they are called
Hmm.
nematocysts. And
Hmm.
with that, they capture their prey. But that only happens at night. During
Yes.
the day, they are just inside of the cocoon of calcium carbonate, and they are being fed by the algae, and in that way they can have, and that's the problem. In 2017, because of an event of the global warming event that happened in Australia,
Hmm.
half of the Great Barrier Reef died
Yep.
because the temperature of the water, when it increases, it makes that the algae becomes toxic to the coral,
Hmm.
so the coral has to expel the algae.
Hmm.
And if in 15 days there is no temperature, the temperature doesn't lower in 15 days, then the algae doesn't come back and the coral dies of starvation.
Hmm.
Can you believe it? And that's what happened over there.
Like,
So there are a lot of factors that they are affecting the coral, you know?
hmm, coral reefs are very, they're very delicate, and they need perfect conditions in
Yes.
order to be able to thrive. So when everything kind of gets thrown out of a balance, it's like a cascading effect. And that's I had no idea that that disease even existed. So thank you for telling us all about it. Another question I had for you was, do you have a specific moment, because the work that you do is so specific to corals? I'm sure there's many reasons why you work in the marine conservation field, but is there a specific moment that inspired you to want to work with corals?
Um, I've been diving for many years. I
Mm-hmm.
came to this island just because I wanted to learn how to scuba dive. I put a
Oh,
tank
wow.
and I never went back home. I stayed here. And that was, I think, at the moment that it was the most important moment, that it showed me that there was something completely different, that it was so alive and so thriving, that it was to know more about it. Unfortunately, also another event, that it was 1994 when they put the first cruise ship dock. In that moment, I was not a biologist by that time. The reason why I became a biologist is because as a veterinarian, it was not enough for them to show them that I knew about corals.
Okay.
So they start building the pier, and that pier was the beginning of the end of the coral reefs of Cozumel.
Oh,
Because
no.
after that pier, that they put only two ships. Now they are three piers, and they can park 9 ships in one single day. That means 60,000 extra people, and all of the propellers of the ships, all of the all of what they involve, it is affecting the reefs.
Right.
First of all, more people coming, that means more beach clubs inside of the marine park.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not connected to where we have the sewage system. So then all that water that it is rich is going into the places where the corals are. And that's, again, because they have to provide the service. Right now, we are fighting because they want to put another pier, that it is going to be a home port in
Oh my
Cozumel,
goodness.
that it is going to be 800 yards long, and it is going to be like another 2 ships that they're going to come in, that they're going to be the biggest ships in the world, and also they are going to make it as a home port. Now it's going to be like a big area where they will build condominiums, where they will build houses, and the reef. What is going to happen to the reef? That's going to be the question.
Right.
So the more we can be able to know how to live with the corals, because it seems that we cannot go against development. This is not the first place where this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
This I saw this happening in Florida before. Florida, it is a coral reef all the way from Palm Beach all the way to Dry Tortugas,
Mm-hmm.
and also all of it has city, and all of that has impacted the reefs in front. How can they survive there? We have to find the way that we can do a rational use of that very fragile natural resource, so that we can live together. Because if not, we're going to lose it. We're losing it as we speak,
Mm-hmm.
every single day, with the
Right.
good or bad intentions, but
Mm-hmm.
it's happening. And the thing is that the only thing I can do right now is educating the people so that they learn more about what coral reefs are,
Mm-hmm.
educating the divers so that they become a helper, so that they become volunteers, so that they can be able to help us to restore the reef by planting corals, by knowing how to do it and do it in the right way. And
Mm-hmm.
in that way, we can be able to do a little bit of an example, so that it's done in other places, and try to save as much as we can, before it's too late.
Before
Because the
it's
way that we're going, we can lose all our coral reefs by 2050.
and then
So something has to be done.
if correct me if I'm wrong, but you said earlier that corals cover about only 0.5% of the ocean floor, and it's home to how an insane amount of species of animals that are in our ocean. And if our corals are gone, then it'll create a cascading effect to all of the animals that live on our coral. And in turn, the ocean
Only
that we know.
one, exactly, 1/4 of all the fish that they live in the oceans of all the planet, they
Mm-hmm.
live in that 0.5% of coral reefs.
Mm-hmm.
That's how important they are. Without the coral reefs, no groupers, no snappers, no lobsters,
Mm-hmm.
nothing.
Nothing.
So they are very important for us in many ways, and we are not giving them the importance that they deserve. We change them right now to make a cheap use of them. And we can do a more conscious kind of tourism and to be able to make the people that are visiting us to be more knowledgeable about what coral reefs are.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, a lot of people, they are not, even if they are divers, not necessarily they were born close to a place where there are coral
Right.
reefs.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people that they are scuba divers, that they are certified in California, in Utah, in wherever you name it, that it is in the central part of Mexico or in the central part of the United States, they have never seen a coral. And if they don't teach them what a coral is when they become divers, the first place where they want to go to scuba dive is going to be to where the coral reefs are. Believe me, they don't go to Lake Travis in Texas, and they don't go to Maine, they go
Yeah.
to where the corals are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we can make a difference because
Right.
we have the tool to help the coral reefs with a scuba diving.
Right. That's completely true. I wholeheartedly believe in education is the world's most powerful tool, and the more you know, the better.
Yes.
And if we all work
Yes.
together to educate and let people know about the importance of conservation, especially within our corals, it can make a huge difference. So I completely agree. Another question I have for you is, do you have, I'm like I said, it seems like your job has, as beautiful as it is, it must have hard days, but do you have a favorite experience so far, like a day that's ever happened, or you've had a day out on the water that was your absolute favorite, like your favorite memory out in the field?
Yeah, favorite day, I'll tell you. There are days that sometimes it is tiring if you have to dive every day.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing of diving is like, for example, when you're in the woods, you never know what is going to happen that day, You can find
Mm-hmm.
things that you never expected that they are going to be there. But for me, one of my favorite things is when I see that where the places that we have planted corals, they start getting with a lot of fish, And
Yeah.
then we see the reason why the coral is the essence of everything.
Yeah.
Because once you put the coral reefs, what they do is that they make that three-dimensionality where the fish can be able to protect themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And in water that is so clear where these animals live, that's the only place where they can live without being eaten by other animals.
Mm-hmm.
So when you plant corals and you see that the corals are growing and that they are making all these places where the fish can escape from
Mm-hmm.
predators, you start counting the species. And when we start, for example, an area, we count how many species of fish they are before we start the planting. And then we go, and 1 year later, we count back in the same place how
Mm-hmm.
many species of fish are. And our record up until now, it's about 70 species of fish in an area where we started with 20 in 2 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's amazing, and that's very rewarding
Yeah.
because then you see that your effort is going somewhere.
Right. It
And then
reminds
when
you
you
of
see
what
all
you're
your
doing.
volunteers,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because and that happens. That's a good thing. That
Mm-hmm.
happens almost every day. You can
Right.
go one day and you can find a big spotted eagle ray, but also
Wow.
you can see that you found a new little baby fish that you haven't seen in 2 years, and that suddenly you see it growing one side of your corals. So that's great. There are good times,
That is
always
absolutely
favorite
amazing.
times.
That is
Yes.
absolutely amazing. That in its own is so rewarding to see all the hard work you're doing actually being inhabited. I'm sure that feels absolutely amazing. Okay. So another
Excellent.
question that we have for you is, with all of the work that you've done and all of the amazing accomplishments that you've done, I'm sure there's been struggles and I'm sure there's been hard times, but what advice would you give to your younger self? And what advice would you give to anyone that's watching this video about being in marine conservation, and especially being a Latino in marine conservation? Because I'm sure that within itself comes with struggles, especially because marine conservation doesn't have many Latinos or Latinas or people who are involved in that type of field. So what advice do you have for your younger self and for anyone that's watching?
Well, I would say that, for example, example, already you have decided what it is, what you want to do, because you are already in marine conservation. And in any of the fields that you choose, I chose the coral reefs because this is where my passion was born for the ocean. I had it since before. Even when you start noticing that you are looking to a lot of those TV programs from the Discovery Channel that
Yeah.
they are referring to the ocean, you know that you already have the bug in you. But the thing
Yeah.
is that focusing what you really want, start early,
Mhm.
and start getting all the information you can. You
Yeah.
know, uh, what I did is that I should have started earlier. I
Mhm.
started when I was older.
Mhm.
I did the master's degree. I got the information. I went to get, first of all, what would be the best place? If I was going to go and study coral reefs, the
Mhm.
best place to study coral reefs was South Florida.
Mhm.
Why? Because you have 7 or 8 schools that they all have marine biology programs.
Mhm.
And you have a coral reef, that good or bad, it's in front of there, it's in the backyard. So that's where you do your studies. If that's the field you want to do. Now, if you want to work with coral reefs, you have to decide if you're going to do coral reefs of the Pacific or
Mhm.
coral reefs of the Atlantic, that they are
Mhm.
different species,
Yeah.
and that would be another decision. Also, that can be not only the one field that you want. You may want to know more about crustaceans or fish, ID fish, or to identify the fish, or know, for example, right now they're doing very interesting studies on the field of most of the larvae of the reef fish. They die
Mhm.
in the first week of life. Only 10% of them survive up until the next stages. So
Mhm.
now the question is, what happens if you can have them in captivity up until they get older and you
Mhm.
release them back on the reef,
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
there are so many things. There is all these things that you have to look for them.
Mhm.
You have it inside. It's just to know what key is the one that's going to open that door that you want to unlock.
Yeah.
And if it's the field that you want to, just go for it. Follow the
Mhm.
passion and go. I started with this, and I'm not gonna let it go up until the day that I die. Because
Yeah.
that's what I enjoy. That's what I see. The results that I wanted. From
Mhm.
when I started here in Cozumel, only Cozumel Coral Reef was the only nonprofit that was working with coral reefs.
Mhm.
Now, in 2021, we have not only we have 2 organizations more that they are starting to work with coral reefs here in Cozumel. One is
Mhm.
called Corales Vivos, and the other one it is called CIMAC.
Mhm.
And also, we are being helped by a nonprofit that it is Waves of Change, that it is from a hotel. But that means that they are getting all these efforts together.
Right.
On the other hand, we have 270 dive stores in Cozumel, in
Wow.
an island that it's 60 miles long and 12 miles wide. They are 270 dive stores. How many dive stores works in coral reef conservation? One,
Wow.
the one that I work in. Now, that has to change.
Yeah.
That has to change,
Mhm.
you know? And you will see also, it happens the same everywhere. So, again, future me's,
Mhm.
go ahead and start seeing how can it be possible? How can you put together diving, that it is a tool, not a
Mhm.
goal, and the core and the conservation of
Mhm.
whatever is going to be the field that you're going to embrace once you are dedicated to your career,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
exactly.
go for it, because there is no end. Believe
Yeah.
me, I live in front of a laboratory. It's the ocean, I
Yeah.
have my corals planted. I don't have to even change the water. I just have to go and see how they're doing and everything else.
Yeah.
So it's awesome. And on
Yeah.
top of that, now we have created a laboratory that it is a wet lab where we have aquariums where we can have organisms from from that reef
Mhm.
inside, and we can do studies in vitro. And we are inviting students that they are doing any kind of studies of marine field.
Mhm.
If they want to come, they can use the laboratory, they can use all the
Wow.
facilities. And in that way, that's another tool that is given, so that in that way, everybody can help. Because at
Right.
the end of the day, That's what we do. That's what we give the course. All these people that they become volunteers and that they are working, they also participate. We, for example, we do the spawning of the corals during the months of September, October, and no, July and August, and September, other species. But we in the laboratory, we collect the gametes, and then we grow the little baby corals. And once they get to about 2 months old, we release them back in the ocean. So all these people that they come and that they are here, they become volunteers and they help us in the different projects that we are working during that time of the year with corals, you know. There are some that they are permanent and some that they are like seasonal, but all those things, they can be taken advantage. And it's good to have that tool because this island, depending so much on the coral reefs from that industry that it is the scuba diving industry, it's incredible that there is not one single laboratory that studies the corals that all these people visit every day, you know? So we are part of the problem. We can be part of the solution.
Exactly. Yep. You're totally right. And if people wanted to, because I don't think I've asked you what your dive shop name is. So if anyone wanted to donate or help out or participate with you or anything, or just get more information on the work that you do and how people can someday be involved or help, where would they go? What should they do? Or how is there a way for people to help?
Okay. I don't have a dive shop. I participate and I work with one that they help us in the area that I am.
Right.
Basically, we are Cozumel Coral Reef Restoration Program. We are a nonprofit that we are located here in Cozumel. And we started in 2013. And what we have done is to try to do programs with all the different universities that they are not only here in Mexico, but also overseas. And in that way, participate in different programs and projects so that we can be able to provide data from here that it can be used in the schools. Like, for example, we found during the spawning event, we were able to find out that we had of a species of coral that we had 270, and it had never been mapped before. So now we know we have those, and now we know that we can go and collect gametes, and we can change a gene depending on what part of the reef we are collecting the gametes from. So all that kind of information and all those kind of things, now they are being born from this. So Cozumel Coral Reef Restoration, it is the best way that they can get in touch with us.
Amazing.
We have a page in Facebook. We have a page, a website that is called ccrrp.org, and you are welcome to come to Cozumel and directly check us out.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, Germán, muchas gracias por todo. Thank you so much for talking with us. I've had such a fun time getting to know you and speaking to you. And I'm sure whoever is watching this video is going to get so inspired and is going to learn so much. So I can't thank you enough for agreeing to be a part of this. It really does mean the world to me. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you to everybody for listening. I hope that everybody follows their dreams.
Yes, exactly. Follow the dream. Por la lucha.
Yep. Yes.